Welcome to the first and maybe the first or inaugural session, how about that, of the Virtual Tow Management Summit. And significantly different, obviously, than in person, but due to the nature of what's going on, and actually the topic of our meeting today is the COVID-19 and what it's doing to us and how it's affected our businesses. But obviously, instead of meeting in person today, we're meeting via Zoom, and it's a direct result of what's happening not only around the United States, but around the world. This session today is sponsored by Ascentium. We'd certainly like to thank them for their belief and support in us and this new educational endeavor in our industry. Thanks to Lauren for battling through the technical difficulties and putting this together, and Clarissa and the entire staff at Tow Times for making this happen. It hopefully will be the first of many, and a good way for us to gather and exchange ideas and information until we're able to gather in person, where we can again share ideas and information and network like we actually prefer to in the future. So joining us today, we've got panelists from across the country. We've got north to south, east to west, and someone that's kind of in the middle of the country. So we've got Mike Porter joining from Oregon. We got Kim Lowell joining from Mass. Jeff Russell joining from Florida. I'm your host, Bill Georges, from Michigan, and we have Brad McIntosh, and we're going to call him from the heartland because he's really in southern Ohio. So you know they're kind of more in the middle of the United States. So without any further ado, we'll push forward. We have a message coming in from Ascentium. So Lauren, when you're ready, if you can cue that up and play the message from Ascentium, and then we'll move forward and begin the panel discussion.
Stay competitive and on the cutting edge of new advancements in technology and equipment. Financing can help you avoid obsolescence with shorter finance terms and flexible buyout options. And with flexible repayment options and terms from 1 to 84 months, as well as deferred payment plans, you can match your payments to your cash flow. Structure your financing to take the best advantage of tax incentives like Section 179.
Ready to get started and experience a higher level of optimism? You can finance virtually any business expense up to $2.5 million. Ascentium Capital is an award-winning national lender. Take advantage of our flexible programs that can be tailored to suit your unique needs.
The towing industry has specific needs. Whether it's your first truck or you're a third-generation business, every situation is unique. Ascentium Capital helps businesses by providing customized financing to match your business needs. We start with our most important asset, our people. You'll work with a team of experienced professionals who understand your needs. Many of us have decades in the industry. Some of us have even owned or worked for towing companies. Those familiar faces are here to help you navigate each purchase and give you peace of mind. We know your dealers. Our network blankets the United States. Having a direct relationship with major dealerships makes for a smooth transition into your new truck. We utilize electronic documents to get paperwork out of the way before you arrive to complete your purchase. Leave the legwork to us. We can utilize our extensive reach and help you find inventory, new or used. Our customers are our focus. We pride ourselves on repeat business. We offer interactive tools to help you manage your loan or lease. If you need help, our customer care department is here for you. From general questions to specific financial situations, we'll take an objective view to help you through your individual circumstance. With our specialized programs, qualified professionals, and connected network, Ascentium Capital is ready to help you. Even heavy equipment can be financed in a day with our application-only program for up to $500,000. Your wait is over. Call Ascentium today.
My name is Chris Zachary. I am the president of Burns Towing Incorporated. We do auto accident recovery and cleanup, impounding. We work for law enforcement agencies. Due to a very unfortunate change in my life, I was taking over this business and taking over quite a bit of debt. Ascentium lent me the money to pay off the bad debt that I had that was ruining my credit. Because of that, I was able to move forward and get another loan and purchase 3 new trucks. Ascentium Capital went out of their way for me when I purchased my new trucks. The problem was, by the time we went through all the steps and looked at all the trucks and I made the decision to go ahead and purchase them, it was fairly late in the afternoon. I had to get funding to the owner before I could drive off with them. Ascentium Capital worked so hard, and it went down to the minutes for that money to get into his account. And they pulled it off. Somehow, some way, they did it for me. It was amazing. I know I would have never gotten service like that. I have been running this business for 5 years, and there are no people that jump through hoops the way they did. And for them to take a personal interest in a client like they did with me, and they gave me strength to get in there and say, yeah, I can do this. Everything was simple. They were kind. The communication was outstanding. I have recommended them to several people. I will continue to recommend them to several people because it's been life-changing for me.
Ascentium Capital. Fast, flexible financing. Call or visit today to receive a no-obligation quote on your next purchase or project.
Welcome back, everyone. And we've had a few more attendees join in as we were going through that. And once again, thank you, Ascentium. Now to talk about the topic of the day, coronavirus, COVID-19, and the effects on our business, what we've done, and what we are continuing to do to improve our response as whether we're considered a first responder or an essential employee workforce. How do we cope and continue to work in this environment and protect our employees? So what I'd like to do, we'll start and kind of throw out the first real question is, in the beginning of the COVID response, as a company manager or owner, what did you do and what steps were you taking to protect your employees and your customers and, protect the safety and security of financial security of your company? So I guess what we'll do is we'll kind of run through the panelists and then go from there. So Jeff, would you like to kick that off? And then we'll kind of go for each person to talk about that, so we kind of get a regional idea of how people were reacting.
To say that around February 15th changed the way we had performed services for our customers and the motoring public as a whole is just an absolute understatement. The way we ran our business on a daily basis, the way we talked to our employees, the way we treated our employees, the way that we communicated even with their spouses just changed overnight. Certainly you mentioned, earlier where we deemed an essential service in our minds we wear, in our employees, they deemed we were an essential service. There was a lot of dissension, in the public forum, whether we were not. And then certainly you had some issues with employees that were, counting on some kind of excessive compensation for whatever they were doing. The cold hard facts is we communicated with all of our customer base, whether it be municipal police agencies, state agencies, whether it was some motoring road service companies, or whether it was commercial accounts, on what we could do or were prepared to do or not prepared to do when it came to transporting people, not having any understanding of clear understanding of what COVID was, understanding what our obligations were to any of those customers, no matter what the discipline was, and understanding equally and probably more importantly to our employees what our responsibilities were. Obviously, with no employees, we weren't had any ability to provide service. So it was amazing to us to watch the customer base, customers that we hadn't heard from in several years, picking up the phone. Hey, can you provide this kind of service for us? And that was obviously because their existing service provider was either closed or was limited to what they could do. We immediately advised everybody that we were not going to be taking the motoring public with us in our trucks. We certainly provided our employees with COVID protection. We certainly spent a lot of time detailing and cleaning our vehicles on a regular basis. We certainly worked with the community on what we could and could not do or prepared to do. And in the end, I think everybody, for the most part, was very understanding on what you could not do. We certainly did not leave a consumer or a driver or anybody in the motoring public on the side of the road, but we certainly made them make alternate arrangements. We sat with them, for some period of time when we had to, and that's really the way it started. It, needless to say, has progressed in the last 3 months to a little more refined system, but I think part of that was the industry's ability to change direction on a moment's notice. I think that is one of the starring moments, I think, for the industry as a whole. So that's kind of where we started. We'll go on from there.
All right. And Brad?
Kind of the same thing. I think a big key for us was being very proactive in the beginning, taking everything serious. Before we experienced any kind of shutdown or any kind of impact to our business or change of life, we saw what was going on in the world and started preparing that this was going to come and this was going to be real and this was going to impact our business and our people. So we were very proactive, thinking ahead what we were going to do. Communication was huge, like Jeff just said, letting the people know. I think what was big for us is letting them know that we didn't know. And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to impact us, how it's going to impact you personally, but we're going to do our best. We're going to try to do what we can to keep the ship from sinking. And that's what we did. Getting out ahead of the government programs was important, getting that money fast. That became available and then dried up and then was available again. That obviously helped. But honestly, being prepared for this thing ahead of time helped. Identifying some inefficiencies in our business earlier in the year that we took care of, making sure we were lean, keeping an eye on overhead and expense. Some of the things we were already looking at proved to be very important during this whole thing. If we would have waited till this actually happened and impacted our business to make some changes, it would have hurt us quite a bit. But we had line of credits in place. We had backup funding. We had the technology in place to release cars through our website versus in-person activity for impounds. All that stuff was very important, and a little bit of foresight went a long way for us.
Okay, Kim?
So I have a little bit of a hat because obviously I have a tow company, but I'm also the executive director of the Towing Association. We got out in front of this pretty quickly. We had a lot of members that were probably not well prepared, did not see the foresight of what was coming. And prior to the government, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issuing directives, we were advocating to our members to protect their employees, to get their policies and procedures in place, how they were going to deal with this, to preserve their cash, to start dialogue with our law enforcement partners, their law enforcement partners, how they were going to deal with these things, consulting with a CPA and sharing that information to our members so that they could get a handle on things, and encouraging them to apply quickly for any available funding. So those were critical before the actual shutdown occurred, because we could see that coming. We also put those resources on our website for the association. It's great that I have a company as well, because then I was able to, whatever I put in practice at the towing company, I shared with the members. So very similar to what Brad and Jeff did. Protect your employees, figure out a plan have an emergency plan in place, and get in cash preservation mode as quickly as you can. Get those efficiencies. So that's
All right.
it.
Thank you. And Mike.
Well, we did the same things. We were in contact with companies all over the country asking what they were doing because each of us had a bit different level. We early on brought in our employees, and it sounds funny to say we sold hope, but that's what we did. Is we talked about that we were in this together. That this wasn't about me surviving and them not. This was about us as a family. And since we are family owned, and I feel like everyone that works with us is part of my immediate family because I spend so much time with them on things that we could do. So we really brought in our employees as part of the solution of what could we do, how could we make it safe for each other, and the safeguards of if you are not feeling well, call, let me know, that we were going to do things that made sure that they were safe.
What happened?
I think Mike froze up.
Thought it was me.
I was like, is that my computer? All right. We'll see when Mike can join back in. Here in Michigan, it was very similar. Obviously, we were significantly worried about cash flow as business volume dropped off significantly. And, what did we do with, employees and scheduling and making sure we had adequate coverage. But, we went into, minimizing overtime, unnecessary expenses, put off some planned expenses just to make sure we were going to be able to survive with the lower cash flow at the time, because it was going to be potentially very, very serious. Let's talk a minute about what the coronavirus is and things like that. We know obviously it's a virus. It's transmitted through saliva or sneezes, cough, sprays. It becomes vaporized and hangs out in the air. And obviously, washing your hands, just like the cold or flu virus or anything else, becomes incredibly important. Hand sanitizer and disposable wipes and things like that. It was almost impossible to get Clorox, get some disinfecting wipes, get hand sanitizer, and some places even soap, just ordinary soap. And I'm not sure how it was around the country, but for a while in Michigan, it was impossible to find toilet paper on the shelves. So, there were a lot of things that happened in addition to, our business side of it that we had to cope with, and finding the supplies to stay open, for safety for our employees. You couldn't find an N95 mask or anything else like that. And, masks are becoming more available, but we still can't get N95 masks from any of our safety suppliers. So I think from a PPE side of it, it's going to be an ongoing battle to continue to find supplies. And early on, we got a little creative in some of the things that we were doing and finding. But as this, goes on for a longer duration now, we need to think about, what are we doing now long term to protect our employees, and just give everybody an opportunity to talk about what you've put in place for your employees and how your approach to PPE may have changed, and what you're doing with your employees, and the challenges of getting employees to be compliant. So Kim, do you want to kick that off? And then I don't see Mike back on yet, so I'm not sure if he's been able to join back in. But Kim, if you want to address that, not only for employees, but also what you did for STA, for the association and those members.
Sure. So early on for our employees, we brought them all in, and similar to what Mike did, had a conversation that I had a sense that this was going to be a global issue that was going to be of a historic nature, and it was going to greatly impact our business. And so we had a long conversation with our employees about the different scenarios and what our goal was. And our goal was that if we did have to shut down, we wanted to be able to keep those employees. We made a business decision based on our financials to furlough everyone, which meant that we kept them on our health insurance plan. So that retained, we were able to bring back 100% of our employees since things have reopened. That was huge for us. I didn't want to lose good employees. We also early on instituted a policy. We sent letters to all of our law enforcement partners and commercial accounts of our procedures that we had established, and most importantly, that we wouldn't be transporting any passengers under any circumstances. We would, however, be amenable to waiting for them to obtain, transportation from a scene or anything of that sort. On the towing association side, we had a lot of members that were faced with challenges because law enforcement were insisting that they transport passengers. We, as an association, got involved with the state police and kicked it up the chain of command, and were able to get that taken care of so that our members are no longer in jeopardy of losing their contracts because they're refusing to transport passengers. Some companies have made the decision that if both parties are masked, they will transport them to the nearest safe haven, but no one's doing long distance transportation. We also got our members designated as first responders, and that enabled us to get access to emergent PPE supplies through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we were able to distribute those out. They were limited in supplies, but we distributed what we had to the members, and we had 4 deliveries of those till things leveled out. And we were also able to get work with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as first responders to be able to go to the first responder testing sites for COVID, which was free. And it also was, at the time, there were very few sites that were doing COVID testing. So we were able to get our members in. They had to be symptomatic, but at least we were able to get them tested quickly with results back usually within 24 hours. So those were huge steps that we were able to take to protect our members. Unfortunately, we had a lot of members that weren't prepared, and we'll talk about that later, I guess, but it's the future. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
All right, thanks. Welcome back, Mike. Sorry you got glitched out for a minute. Where Kim was just talking about, what we're doing to protect our employees and educate them and their safety. So if you want to, pop back in for a few minutes, and I'll let you finish up there, and we'll move on.
So here in the state of Oregon, there was some OSHA and city rules that they put in place and flyers. And so we had some drivers meetings where we went over the proper way to clean, the proper way to wear your mask, not to touch your face, all the, wash your hands on a pretty regular basis, wipe down your workstations, wipe down your truck. We do allow, if need be, I mean, we try not to allow any passengers in, but it is what it is. So if that's the case, we have extra masks. We also have extra gloves that we ask them to please put on and dispose of, and we try to take them to the nearest safe location, so they're not traveling with us for a long periods of time. So those are the things that we've been doing and are still doing.
Okay, Brad?
Yeah, a lot along the same lines. A lot of stuff, we probably should have been doing in the first place. A lot of hand sanitizer, a lot of disinfecting trucks, washing hands, a lot of using driver discretion. If someone is on the side of the road and they're hacking and coughing and sniffling and sneezing, we have to use some discretion there and realize that that's probably not a good person to transport. We try to discourage all riders for a lot of reasons, but COVID brings up a whole new set of reasons that we need to watch out for. But, there are some circumstances that we're probably going to need to transport those people, and we, have the proper PPE, make them wear gloves and a mask, disinfect afterwards and all of that. Outside of that, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Everybody that we've dealt with customer wise pretty much understands. They get it. They know what's going on in the world. They understand that not everybody wants to be side by side next to people right now, especially strangers. So we haven't had a huge issue with that. There have been a few situations that we've had to address individually and get some taxis or Ubers or Lyfts or whatever and accommodate accordingly and do the best we can for the customers. But for the most part, everybody, although they might not be happy about it, they understand and they get the purpose and why we have to do that.
Brad, following up on that, I just want to talk a second about, are you as a company doing a lot more unattended tows as a result of this, and just telling the customer it's okay to leave the vehicle, leave the keys in a safe location, and we'll tow your car? And then in addition, what are you doing to protect yourselves from the downstream liability or potential damage of, oh, hey, I left my keys in the car, you guys towed it, now it's got a scratch or a dent or a ding or whatever. Are you doing anything different than you normally would? Or have you, done other things to maybe make up for the fact that you might be doing more unattended tows?
Yeah, I mean, there is an uptick in that. It's all part of the script and the communication ahead of time that we try to set that expectation that we'd prefer the customer not be with the vehicle and not have a rider. We do that anyway, but especially during this time. So we have seen some uptick in that, but to lessen our liability and that sort of thing, it's all about documentation. So the minute, first of all, our phone calls are recorded. So we have that, if that ever comes about of he said, she said, but the driver, when they get on scene, they document everything. Our dispatch app, we take pictures and all that stuff is stored, time-stamped, geo-stamped. So we can at least have some ammunition if there is an argument or a disagreement on what took place and what might have happened and who's at fault. But for the most part, again, no issue with that so far.
Okay, great. And Jeff?
I think, unfortunately, this has become the new norm. When we started back in March, we talked about cash management for a minute. We've always been a cash management based business. All the numbers never lied. And so we were right on top of that piece of it. We brought our employees in and discussed that. And we've always shared that financial information with them on, this is what we have to have so that we can make sure your paycheck and your benefits and all the rest of that stuff are good every Friday. They were very understanding. We certainly started on the COVID protocol, masks, sanitizer, clean trucks, cleanliness is next to godliness with all the employees, and talked about transportation and that they were the ultimate. If we were in a position where we had to transport somebody with us, that they had the ultimate power of veto, that they weren't going to do it, and we would go on from there. For the most part, we had a few hiccups in that conversation up front. Candidly, it was a lot of them with the a limited amount of road service that we do, but the road service companies, and it was not the management, it was the dispatcher who was
Yes.
On the other end of the phone with a consumer. The consumer is, what am I going to do? And the dispatcher not having any understanding of what they were asking us to do. I can tell you that we had, out of the vast number of calls that we had, you could probably count those issues on one hand on a monthly basis. So that really wasn't the issue, but it was getting the employees not to be complacent in that this was a real issue, and there was a significant amount of liability, not only for your health and well-being, and for that of your family members. I mean, a lot of our light duty drivers have young families. A lot of the heavy duty drivers obviously are more seasoned drivers, so they have older families, and so you work through that conversation. we did not have any experience with the commercial accounts over COVID protocols and what we would or would not do. They all understood it. They were facing the same thing. As many of you know, Florida is leading the nation in COVID cases and COVID diagnoses and this type of thing. Trying to have people tested is a battle, just availability. Out of our approximately 300 employees, we had a dispatcher in one terminal was ill, in late March, proved ultimately to be positive, and we followed those protocols as far as when anybody was not feeling well, stay home, get tested, don't come back until the time goes. We obviously paid them through that as required, and we were able to get those proceeds back at another time. We had a driver here in Palm Beach who tested positive, and the only reason he did was his wife, her employer, which was a government agency, dictated that if you were working and your spouse was working, that your spouse also had to be tested. So when they tested him, he came up positive. We immediately brought a COVID test team in, and I heard somebody talk about $150. It was $180 a test for every employee in the Palm Beach terminal. Nobody else came up positive. But sadly, we didn't get that information back for several days. I don't know the exact number, but it was 4 to 6 days. Needless to say, it could have been rampant in here. And that's just, we talked earlier about availability. We were the benefactor of some PPE funds. And I talked a little bit a minute ago about bringing everybody in and talking about that. We didn't lay any drivers off. We did manage some of our staff that was what I call indirect, salespeople, that type of thing that, for those of you that employ salespeople, obviously they can't go call on a customer today. They're left to deal digitally and on the phone and talking with customers. So we managed some of those times. We had some administration people that we were concerned about their age, about maybe some pre-existing medical conditions, and we've had those people working from home, and that has worked extremely well. Contrary to proper, they're at it first thing in the morning. They're communicating with us. We're communicating with them. They're talking with customers, and for the most part, accounts receivable collections, all of those things have been really good. But we've been on top of it. It's been a normal course of business for us. We haven't seen a drastic drop in call counts, in revenues, in collections, and cash flow, but that is a historical issue with us, as far as we didn't wait for something to happen. It was what we did every day. So that part of it has been really pleasantly surprising. But as I said to you earlier, this is becoming the norm. So you've got to be sure that you don't get complacent, and you've got to be sure that your staff understands that this is not going away anytime soon, and keep on top of it. So that's really kind of, as we've focused really hard on it, we're trying not to get involved in the politics of the conversation. So.
No politics, just protecting our employees and our customers to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Amen.
I think that's the big focus of this for us, has always been protect our employees regardless of the politics, and use the best available information that we have at the time. So, we were sourcing masks. I even sent masks down to Clarissa at Tow Times because we were able to get them up here and they weren't able to get them down there. So, it's just one of those things where, our guy who normally does awnings was making masks. And so we were buying masks made out of awning material and whatever we could get available, and protect our employees and protect our customers. One of the questions that just came through, and I think it's very important, and it kind of goes right into the next thing, is what do we expect for tow volumes and trends as we go into the fall? And what are we doing, or what have you done to prepare for, some of the states are in going back into lockdown. I was looking at the trends for New York, and their trend line is way down, and while they had that real draconian, you know, response at the beginning when everybody thought it was an overreaction, it seems that it might have been a more appropriate reaction where they were enforcing masks and stuff early on. So just to kind of bounce off that, Mike, are you expecting, you know, numbers to trend up or down in terms of call volume? And, you know, what are you looking toward the fall, and what do you think is going to happen, you know, in your community where you're serving? Unmute.
Boy, that if you had asked me that probably 30 days ago, I would have had a different view. But we are now going back to phase one here. I'm here in Portland, Oregon, so we don't only have to deal with the virus, we also have some rioting still going on. I think we're on day 75. And so our outlook is hopeful, but really what we're doing is planning for it to stay about the same, which is about a 30 to 40% decrease. We are starting to see a little bit of an uptick here locally of cases. I think part of that is that there's more testing available than there has been for us here on the West Coast. We haven't, at least in my group of businesses, which is about 5 different businesses, we've not seen anyone have the virus. So our plan moving forward is we are contacting the client base. I actually have a salesperson who does go out, who's fully masked and speaks with our clientele and new folks, let them know that we are available because here auto shops and body shops have been ruled essential also. And so we are trying to get ahead of the game by we are continuing our training, extending our training for our drivers and for our dispatchers so that when the world does come back to normal, or whatever normal is going to be, that we're prepped and ready to go. We have seen an uptick in business. The weather's been nice here, which is always a nice thing for here in Oregon. So our outlook is hopeful, but we're planning for things staying about the same. So that's about as wishy-washy as I can get. But it's really about the best that we can hope for, I think, at this time.
Oh, okay. And Brad, what do you think about the middle of the country? What do you think your numbers are going to trend like as we come into the fall? And, you know, how have the numbers affected your approach right now?
Well, obviously the numbers kind of fell on their face back in March and April, obviously, like they did everywhere in the country, and they've come back pretty strong. I'm not convinced that we've seen the last of the shutdowns for this pandemic. I think when people get back to school and work and all of that, I think there might be more to come. And I know that depends on, it's very state by state, and unfortunately, long term, you know, this is the new precedent. Any new virus, any new sickness, whatever that pops its head up in the future, we might have the same type of reaction by the government and shut us down. So we got to keep that in mind. But looking ahead, you know, the numbers have come back. You know, we're still down based on where we would normally be this time of year. You know, in the dog days of summer, the extreme heat, you know, we get very busy, and we're just not to that point. We are a new busy, a new normal. We're busy for this new environment we're in at the moment. Nothing's going to get back to normal anytime soon, if ever. I don't think we'll ever get back to the same volume unless competition goes away to some degree, because I think there's going to be less volume in the near future. A lot of people are now working from home. There's just going to be less people on the road. Now, there are some opportunities in this environment, which we can talk about later, but I don't see the numbers getting back to where they were pre-COVID anytime soon. So I think all the changes you make to be more efficient and conserve cash and all of that are going to prove to be very important here in the next, you know, at least 6 months.
Okay. And Kim?
Well, we initially throughout the Commonwealth, because they shut us down pretty quickly, MassDOT recorded an 80% decrease in traffic, and the industry saw the corresponding drop in business. it's what I'm hearing across the state is they're down about 20%. We're in a tourist area, and we're right back to normal. But going forward, we're anticipating a significant drop come fall. As Brad said, when the kids get back to school, people go back to work. We're going to see an uptick. We know we are, and we have a governor that will not hesitate. He's already rolled us back to a phase 2 instead of 2B. He will be quick to react. So it could go from norm back to an 80% decrease, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be about a 40 to 60% decrease come fall. And you just have to be prepared for it. That's all. There's and the new norm, I agree that we're seeing more and more companies shift to remote working on a permanent basis. So the traffic levels will be down, and the corresponding, towing the needs will be reduced. So you have to be creative. But there's also a lot of opportunity, because there are a lot of companies that are not going to survive this. So I think looking forward, we're looking at other opportunities and diversification.
And Jeff.
And I think one of the biggest issues that we've watched, and I say this very tongue-in-cheek and with a great deal of respect, when it started, talking about police volumes, I was saying that, you had to get into a gunfight with an officer before he'd pull you over, arrest you, or anything like that. And then obviously that went away. So the police volume dropped off significantly. We looked at, back to, again, March 15th, we looked at our AR and looked at customers who had a difficult time paying you in reasonable terms prior to March the 15th, and immediately shut those guys off, because if they couldn't pay you in January and February of 2020, they sure as hell weren't going to pay you in April and May and June. So, we're obviously not a bank. So we worked through that. Undoubtedly, our call volume went down, but our revenue per call increased significantly. Our ability to take care of customers who were happy to have you as a service provider and were willing to pay you in a timely fashion per your agreement. Whatever, it doesn't matter what your price is whatever your agreement is. So we ran onto that. Now we watched our volume drop from record quarters, Q4 in 2019, and really the first quarter of 2020, we watched that volume drop by 11 or 12%. We're happy to say that Q3, by the time we're into Q3 of 2020, that revenue is off low single digits over those peak times, but still ahead of Qs 1, 2, and now 3 of 19. So that's been a matter of us really focusing on customers that have, they're looking for service on a timely fashion and have the ability to pay. The other thing that we've noticed, though, on the police towing side, while towing volume is down, catastrophic accidents and truck wrecks, those type of things, really fatalities are way up. And that's, if you get out on the highways here in Florida, I got to, admit that I'm a guy that's, I'm high 70s, 80 miles an hour between terminals all the time. There's all kinds of people passing me at 90 miles an hour and, zigging and zagging in between traffic. People's driving ability, because there are fewer cars on the road, has gotten stupid. So I think that's been a significant issue for us. But again, we continue to answer the phone 24/7. And as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of smaller guys that aren't doing that. There's certainly, no, we're not going any distance. We're not traveling between cities. We're going to travel within 4 or 5 miles of our own home base. So.
All right, thank you. Couple of questions that have come in, and this was brought up by both Brad and Kim about opportunities. And I think, there are opportunities. while we saw in Michigan some of our business volume fall off initially, we've also seen an increase in volume as a larger tower that has full staff 24 hours a day, and we're not running on call people, that we've been able to pick up additional volume from other towers that have more become 9-to-5 towers. And so we've seen additional volume in like late afternoon, early evenings, and we're staffed appropriately, and we've been able to gather extra revenue. So that's been good for us. But I'd like to delve into that a little bit, and what are the opportunities now for us, and what can we do to manage and control our costs, and maybe even add another part of a question that, some of the changes that we've implemented with PPE and, some of the budgeting and financial decisions that we've made, are we going to take those from temporary to more permanent? Are they going to be our Kim used the word new norm? This is our new norm. Are these types of PPE, hand sanitizer, gloves, masks in the truck, is this going to be our new norm, even if this coronavirus, even if we get through this, so is that our new norm? So just focus back for a minute. I'll kick it off with Brad, because you started the word with opportunity. What are the new opportunities, and what are the opportunities for you to manage the company more efficiently, and control costs, and maybe make more profitable business with a lower volume?
Yeah, this whole thing has been a great opportunity to step back and almost build the business back from scratch. Things got slow. You had a lot of uncertainty. You were really looking at your business through a new lens, a new set of eyes, and viewing everything differently. So that's been very good to kind of reevaluate the way we manage, but really reevaluate our customers. If the volume's going to be down, I want to put all of my effort and attention into the profitable customers, the more profitable, most profitable customers. We all know some are more profitable than others. And unfortunately, this whole episode has put some people out of business. There were a lot of, as we all know, towing is not a huge profit margin industry, and a lot of people were on the balance or the bubble of going out of business probably anyway. And, May, April, March going back, we're really the knockout blow to put them out of business. And unfortunately, I think we've all probably seen that around us. So there is an opportunity for calls there, for volume. There's the opportunity to reevaluate your customers and how they pay you. Cut off, really evaluate who deserves, a house account, who deserves to let you leverage that money like that, and really who should be on cash basis. That's, people are slow pay before, like Jeff just said, they're really going to be slow pay now. So cash in the hand is much better. So reevaluate how you're, if you're billing customers, if you're COD, that kind of thing. It's been a great opportunity to think outside the box, look at new service lines. Maybe you didn't want to mess with some dumpster cans, or, just whatever. Toolboxes, maybe you didn't want to mess with it before, and the guy in town that did it previously went out of business or whatever, and that opportunity is there. Maybe you're looking at it differently now because you're looking at revenue and ways to replace what you've lost. I think there's an opportunity in everything. Your rates, if you were in a bad shape with your rates and they weren't profitable before, you're really in trouble now. So if you weren't looking at that, especially motor clubs or your lower margin business, if you weren't already reevaluating those and making sure that those were profitable before, you should really be doing that now while you have this opportunity. I guess that's covers most of it.
Thank you. And Kim, opportunities as you see them.
Well, I think there are a lot of, to reiterate what Brad said, there are a lot of companies that are either out of business or have reduced their service hours. The towing industry is at least in the New England area, there are a lot of owners that are aging out that are just stepping away. They're not they weren't in good financial shape to begin with. They don't want to reinvest in something when they're looking at retirement 3 to 5 years down the road. So there's multiple opportunities in those areas, as well as, like Brad said, thinking outside the box, looking at things that maybe we provided an ancillary service that now becomes one of our core services because it's more profitable, because there's the demand there for it, because someone else isn't providing that service now. And certainly having the downtime to reevaluate everything has been huge. There aren't enough hours in the day normally, and it's actually a gift that we've been able to sit down and reevaluate and take the time to pull things apart and restructure and look at how we do business, and get the employees, engaged in that as well, get their feedback. And we've always asked for their opinions, but now it's really, we have some that think way outside the box, and it's been a godsend. So to be able to tap those resources and take the time, that's a huge opportunity right there. So that's it.
Thank you, Michael. Opportunities?
Well, we're kind of going after our competition at this point in time. And we are calling, we send a little bit of a kind of a small gift basket just to say, thanks for talking to us, and we're available. Even if you don't want us as your primary, if your primary can't service you, please call us as your secondary. Everyone that we call, I send a personal handwritten thank you card for taking the time to talk to us, because I know that they're going through the same type of situation that we are, where we're all trying to figure out where do we go from here, and that we share with them that we want to be a part of that journey with them. And before, like Kim said, you never had enough time in the day to get some of these things done that you wanted, to be able to reevaluate where my business is coming from, who's out there that we've never had a relationship with. So how do we start that relationship even now? And so it's given us something that all of us, which is a godsend, is some time. And that is a double-edged sword at times, because at least for myself, I'm usually so busy, I get lots done. And when things have slowed down to, it feels like a standstill, I feel like I'm moving in mud to try to move us forward, or at least move myself forward. But that's where we see our opportunity, is that it gives us a chance to meet, not basically physically, but to get some of our information and opportunity to clients that maybe never would have used us in the past, because my competition isn't contacting them. They're not letting them know where they stand, and they're not letting them know these are the things that we're doing to keep you safe, to keep your employees safe, and to be part of this journey together.
One of the things that we've done, Mike, is we've reached out to a lot of our customers, and over the past couple of weeks, we've seen other customers come to us because we're going to continue to serve them. And stressing to our employees, when you go to a customer's facility, make sure you're wearing your PPE, make sure you're wearing a mask if you go into anyone's building, and make sure we're being respectful of their spaces and their buildings. And that's actually come back to us in a really good way with several customers that we've handled occasionally over the last 10 years, but now we're seeing them come back as a more regular customer, where either their tower has just dropped the ball completely, or not being responsive to them. And I think that's very important. One of the, as we talk here, we're going to wrap up probably in about the next 10 to 15 minutes here. We're approaching 12:30 right now. I'd like everybody to think about this and maybe respond. What are you preparing to do for potentially the next shutdown? If you're potentially going into a lockdown, whether it's with this particular strain of COVID right now, and it may happen in the next weeks to months. And what have you done technologically? Are you prepared to, basically close your dispatch office and go to remote dispatch? Can you, can you forward your phones, and can you use technology to improve that? And what have you done with your drivers in terms of technology to better respond? And then kind of the last thing is, what would you think is the biggest lesson that this pandemic has taught you as a manager or business owner, and what can we share with others to move them forward? And I'll just kick off with Jeff, and we'll give everybody a few minutes, and we'll try to wrap up a little after 12:30. So Jeff, if you'd like to kind of run with that for a few minutes, please.
Yeah, in our group of companies, we manage about 6,000 inbound phone calls a day related to the services we provide, and we don't believe that remote dispatch or centralized dispatch is going to be a solution to give any kind of quality service to our customers. Obviously, dispatch being the first contact any consumer phoning or police agency phoning. So we're spending more time with dispatch. We're actually adding additional call takers and phone answerers in dispatch centers so that they've got time to talk to the consumer or to the inbound phone call on what the needs are. The administration piece, we certainly believe that we can move that. We talked a bit about it a little earlier, move that to people's homes. Our IT department has a number of laptops and printers and so on and so forth that we can take remotely and install them and get people working on that part. Again, working with our employees, making them understand what the risk is in contacting COVID and taking it to, whether it be back home or not. So we talked about cleanliness is next to godliness. So they're changing those particular ways, and certainly communication between all of us is a big issue. Missed a little something here on customers. We're spending a lot of time communicating with customers, new, old, other words, people that we want to do business. And I've talked about this in other towing venues. Like kind, you want to deal with like kind quality people, whether that's your competitors, whether that's the customer. So we communicate a lot with competitors and try and work with them so that they know if they've got a problem that we can help be that solution to the problem, and we're not a predator in that marketplace. And as Kim talked about earlier, there are other opportunities out there that people are finally, whether it's age, whether it's financial, whether it's employees, that they are looking for, how can we partner up? How can we work together for survival? And I think that's really the way that it goes on. I don't think that, I believe that there will be another, whether it's COVID or another virus, I don't believe that this is going to change the way we do things forever. And I think you've got to be on top of that on a weekly and really even daily basis, so that you can keep that going. Some kind of medication that will manage COVID, that will be probably a couple of years before it's in full service. And by that time, there'll be some other, obviously we've gone through SARS, we've gone through a number of different things. There'll be something else there. Again, this is the new norm. Got to be on top of it.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Brad.
Yeah, you got to plan ahead and think about what's next. Even if it's not something like COVID, you got to plan ahead for a flood or a tornado or a mass infrastructure outage, internet, phones, whatever go down. You need a backup plan. You need to have it in place. You need to have the policies. So we've been spending some time doing that. What happens if we have to go days without internet? We've got wireless cards installed in all the dispatch PCs now. We can operate off mobile hotspots and that sort of thing. But looking ahead, like has been mentioned before, this is the new norm. I expect more shutdowns to some degree, or work at home orders, whatever it might be. So having the equipment and the policies and all of that already ready, a phone system that can be plugged in and played anywhere. that operates just like you were in the office. Computers, laptops, like Jeff mentioned, equipment that can move. If you're not going to work from home, having the space, kind of reconfigure your office to spread people out if that's the route you're going to go. Big thing for us has been communication. How we're going to communicate. Things changed back in March and April daily. The governor had a new mandate every day, it seemed like, on what was going to happen, how we had to operate, and those sorts of things. So being able to communicate that, finding a communication app or, company-wide email, or maybe your dispatch system has the messaging feature, being able to communicate that stuff effectively that your employees see on the fly has been very important and will be even more important moving forward. We talked about the drivers earlier on PPE and how they can protect themselves and what kind of power they have to control the situation. But, our website's been huge, being able to release cars, over the website. Owners could upload their release, their ownership paperwork, their driver's license, they submit payment all on the website. They don't have to come in the office. We direct them to their car when they get to the lot, and away they go. We're going to push for that. Definitely try to keep that as the new norm moving forward. I guess that's about it.
Okay, and Kim.
Well, we're pretty well prepared. I mean, we've adjusted accordingly. I think technology is huge. I agree with Brad. You have to be plug and play. You have to be able to be mobile and move and adjust accordingly. So it's important that you do have that phone system, a voice over IP plug and play situation, that you have a cloud-based dispatch system, that you have a way of communicating with your employees, whether it be through messaging, through the dispatch system, whatever it might be, as things change on a daily basis. Going forward, I fully expect this is the new norm, that we will continue to do PPE and cleanliness, and I am fully expecting the fall not to be so great up here, and we'll be adjusting accordingly. We had, we adjusted. We had most of our drivers being dispatched from home. We didn't have anybody coming into the shop. And we found that we have a good group of employees out of that. So that's kind of the norm now. We don't have a lot of people in and out on a constant basis. Everything's done electronically, and no touch releases, and absolutely anything that we can do to protect. But I think going forward, this is the new norm. We're going to be doing this. This is going to be the towing industry of the future. So.
Okay. And Mike.
I think the question is, do I have a document? The first thing I thought, to be honest, when you asked that question, is if we ask the captain of the Titanic, if you hit another iceberg, what are you going to do differently after this one? Again, I think that I'm going to make sure we have enough life jackets and life rafts if everything shuts down again. My thought is we may take some steps back, but because of what the prep that we've had to do with this, I feel like we're much more prepared if we take a couple steps back. If the whole world shuts down, then that's another story. And I think we're as prepared, just like everyone said. We've set up where I can transfer my phones anywhere in the world. So if my phones go down here, I can transfer them to anyone that has a phone line, which is a real advantage. We've got I've set up laptops for all my internal employees, so if they needed to work from home, they could. So it helps that way. And other than that, it's a whole lot of prayer that if this is the new norm, that this is what the norm is, as opposed to a world completely shutting down. And then I'm not sure what our plan is if that iceberg hits us one more time completely.
All right, thank you. One of the last questions that came in, I'm going to kind of dovetail these two together. What's employee recruiting and hiring been like in your area with unemployment levels where they are right now? Is it easier to get qualified drivers? And then the last is, what do you see as the number one challenge in your individual companies, basically through the end of the year? Not what's really what we're doing, but what do you think going forward are the number one challenge is going to be? So Mike, if you want to kind of bounce back on that, and we'll run through the panelists and then wrap this up.
I believe what you say becomes fact, and we have been preaching that finding drivers is easy, and believe it or not, it has been. In this pandemic, for the first time in a lot of years in our area, I can put an ad out on Craigslist or Indeed, and I've had lots, and I mean lots of people who have applied and ended up coming in and applying, and we've been able to hire some really good people during this time. Our greatest challenge is two things. I think one is facing the unknown and not losing hope. I think that is really the biggest challenge of if you watch the news, if you you can buy into that this is the end and we're not going to make it. I think that's probably the greatest challenge is the unknown. And so we are taking things day by day and planning for as bright a future as possible.
Okay. Kim, the biggest challenge through the end of the year?
I think staying positive, absolutely. It's to keep moving forward and with a positive outlook so that you can invigorate your employees and be ready to adapt, be adaptable. And, you know, we all have our little idiosyncrasies that we are difficult to let go of. And I think in this brave new world, we have to just be able to let go of all of that. And so we have to work on ourselves every day to make sure that we're going to be able to react and adapt to whatever happens. That's my challenge every day.
All right. And Brad, biggest challenge for the end of the year?
Kind of like what was mentioned, the unknown, having to react very quickly to changes from a government or a regulation standpoint that are out of our control is very tough, especially when they change very frequently. You know, this whole thing came about onto our businesses and because of nothing we did, not a decision we made as business owners or a direction we went with our business. This was out of our control and we had to adapt. So that's a huge challenge is, you know, the unknown of what's going to happen and how quickly we're going to have to adapt to changes that are out of our control. That and cash flow. I mean, cash flow is always a concern, especially in these times with not knowing what tomorrow is going to hold. Paying attention to your cash flow is going to be the most important thing. Drivers have been easy, like Mike said. You know, if you have taken care of your people through all this, there's more people looking for work right now. We've had more qualified drivers lately than probably we've ever had, and that's been, unfortunately, we're not having to hire a bunch because, you know, the way business is right now. But when we have hired some people through this, and those recruiting efforts were very easy.
All right, great. And Jeff?
I think the biggest issue, and you talk about to staffing and drivers, and we're all very concerned about that. I think employee retention, even on new hires, is some of your biggest issues. I mean, there was obviously a lot of dissension in the unemployment funds paid by, you know, the matching numbers paid by the federal government. That's gone away. That's kind of opened some doors there for 2 or 3 months. Obviously, people taking home $850 a week, you know, for your average driver or dispatcher, that was take-home money. And obviously, we were competing with our government agencies for our employees. Those have somewhat gone away, but I think the retention it's easy to hire people today. It's harder to keep them longer term because you don't know what their expectations are. And obviously, if you watch the news on a daily basis, the world has changed significantly, whether it be downtown Portland, downtown Seattle, or frankly, downtown Dayton, Ohio. You know, we're going through all those people issues. So I think one of the biggest issues we've got to be, to a degree, a more sympathetic, more caring, not only service provider, member of the community, and certainly with your own employees. You've got to listen to what their issues are. You don't know what they're going through. You know, emotionally, mentally, any of those things, I got to say that I myself don't go through every day with as positive an attitude as I have for the last 40 years in business. You're wondering what the next when the next shoe is going to drop. So I think that's really the biggest issue. I'm not as concerned about commercial businesses, the number of calls, all of those things. I think that number, everybody's still got to eat. Everybody is still, you know, they're still spending money, so on and so forth, providing you understand where those numbers are coming from. And obviously, again, dealing with the customers who have the ability to pay. So that's where we're at.
Great, thank you very much. One thing, Brad, when you were mentioning, you know, you're not sure what the next disaster is going to be in Central Michigan. We had the Corona start in late February, early March, and in early May, we had 3 dams burst that plunged 2 of our small communities into water 10 to 12 feet deep for 6 to 12 hours, just moved houses and, you know, destroyed cars, mobile homes, trailers, boats, really devastated the local community. And there was some opportunity for business in there for us, but there were also a lot of challenges in dealing with that. So, you know, I think it was very poignant that you said, you know, it might not be a medical disaster. It could just be some other disaster, whether it's the flood, a tornado, hurricanes in southern Florida, or coming up the coast that all have an effect on us. As we wrap up today, once again, I would love to thank Ascentium Capital for sponsoring this and helping us with the platform to make this possible today. I hope it was very, very informative for people. We do have the 2-day summit that starts tomorrow at 11. The cost for that is $199. So for those attendees that logged in today to the inaugural session, if you haven't signed up, please sign up and join us for the next couple of days for the next sessions. And one of the sessions specifically is on disaster planning. So I think it's incredibly important that as we move forward, you know, through the end of the year, we're right at the beginning of hurricane season now, and you know, we've got several more months of that. But you know, there have been some tornadoes, some earthquakes, and you know, like we had the floods. So I do think that we need to be responsive and prepared to deal with them. So I think that it's been great to have everyone. Once again, like to thank Ascentium, the staff at Tow Times, Lauren, for your persistence in making sure that we got the bugs worked out this morning, Clarissa, and everyone who posed questions to challenge the panel and make this a better program. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you hopefully the next couple of days on the new virtual summit platform, and look forward to tomorrow. Thanks everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Bye, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
Bill.